There's this question, where do the feelings go? It almost sounds like a mystery from a psychological thriller, doesn't it? Well, welcome to this explainer. Today we're unpacking a highly invisible, yet incredibly common human experience. We're looking at this emotional vanishing act that's happening all around us, and honestly, maybe even within us right now. There is a peculiar kind of silence that exists inside some people. And to be clear, we are not talking about the silence of an empty room or just the quiet of being physically alone. We're talking about a really profound, slightly unsettling silence of feeling far less than you once did. It's this deep absence, but it's perfectly disguised as a completely normal everyday life. Throughout this explainer on the disappearance of feeling and the psychology of emotional detachment, we're going to investigate a deeply fascinating question. Why does the human mind secretly decide that feeling less is somehow safer than feeling fully? Emotion is literally the operating system of the human experience. So when it starts quietly shutting down, we really need to find out why. To solve this mystery, we first have to figure out what it actually looks like in the wild. Part 1. The symptoms. Mechanical participation. There is this stark, honestly kind of eerie contrast between the outside and the inside. Externally, this person laughs at exactly the right moments, they reply to their texts, they show up to work and crush their presentations, they keep up with their relationships. But internally, the reality is entirely different. Emotions arrive completely muted. Experiences that used to bring them a ton of joy are strangely flat now. Connections feel super distant. Life keeps moving, but their participation on it has become entirely mechanical. And the crazy thing is, a lot of people mistake this for strength or emotional maturity, but the truth is way more complex. So, what's the actual motive behind this vanishing act? Let's get into part 2, the biological alibi, survival over happiness. We tend to imagine the human mind as this perfect little machine designed specifically for happiness. Well, it isn't. The brain evolved primarily to do one thing: keep you alive. And because of this, we kind of need to redefine trauma. Trauma is simply what remained unresolved afterward. It's not just the painful event itself, the harsh criticism, the rejection, the devastating loss. It's the overwhelming, accumulated emotional strain that your nervous system simply could not process. When emotional pain gets too heavy, your brain hits the emergency brake and starts searching for protection. And that protection, it comes in the form of emotional distance. The brain basically strikes this tragic, unconscious trade with itself. It lowers the emotional volume of your life so you can survive all that overwhelming suffering. You feel less pain, sure, but the hidden cost is feeling way less joy. And this isn't some conscious, deliberate choice. A person might not even realize it's happening at first. They just wake up one day and notice that a compliment doesn't really land. A big success feels incredibly small, and the vibrant emotional color of life has quietly faded to gray. But how exactly does this biological trade-off take hold over time? Part 3, the investigation. How pain teaches the mind. This is the heartbreaking descent into emotional detachment. Because it doesn't just happen after one bad day or one disappointment. It happens after years of them. First, expectations fail. Promises collapse. Second, trust is broken again and again. Then, a psychological instinct forms. Your mind literally learns the lesson that caring too much is dangerous, that vulnerability just equals pain. And finally, investment stops. The person just stops hoping intensely and trusting easily. Now, from the outside, this looks like fierce independence. But internally, they aren't avoiding attachment because they don't want connection. They're avoiding it because connection once hurt them deeply. But here's the thing. We don't make this journey into detachment completely alone. Part 4, the accomplices, culture and the digital shield. Our culture actually actively rewards this emotional disappearance. Just think about our modern ideals of strength for a second. We idolize the person who never reacts, the one who appears totally invulnerable, seemingly unaffected, needing absolutely nobody. Our culture heavily idolizes emotional control, and social media just amplifies this, equating true strength with emotional restraint. The fascinating and frankly kind of toxic result of this is that millions of people are out there privately starving for connection while publicly performing this cold, unaffected detachment. They desperately want understanding, but they are terrified of the exposure. And then we hand them a smartphone. Engagement is not connection. I mean, never in history have humans been so connected while feeling so completely disconnected. Technology acts as the absolute perfect emotional insulator. You can receive constant notifications all day long, yet feel entirely invisible. You can consume endless hours of content without a single drop of real emotional stimulation. For a detached nervous system, scrolling is vastly easier than reflecting. Observing is so much safer than actually participating. Technology just becomes this digital shield, a substitute for real intimacy, where simulation completely replaces genuine vulnerability. And here is where our investigation takes a pretty devastating turn. Part 5. The tragic twist. The hidden cost.
Society generally assumes that detached people are just empty inside, or that they simply care less than the rest of us. That is a massive myth. Numbness is emotional overload disguised as silence. Their nervous systems are simply exhausted. The mind didn't shut down because the feelings were weak. It shut down because the feelings were far too powerful to carry. It's a complete system overload masquerading as a quiet, empty room.
Which brings us to this bitter paradox. On one hand, you have the protection. Detachment effectively blocks the pain and drastically reduces your vulnerability, but it quickly turns into a prison because it simultaneously blocks the joy and reduces the intimacy. See, an emotional shutdown cannot distinguish between good and bad emotions. If you numb the dark, you numb the light. That very same emotional armor you forged to protect your heart eventually just locks you inside of it. Without any emotional involvement, your achievements feel temporary, your memories feel muted, and sure, you survive, but you no longer fully experience. So where does that actually leave us? Part 6. The verdict. The enduring human need. The absolute most fascinating truth about emotional detachment is that it never actually eliminates your emotional needs. It merely obscures them. Those hidden cravings remain fully intact: understanding, connection, acceptance, belonging, and love. Emotionally detached people are actually often profoundly sensitive souls. The desire for closeness never vanishes. Beneath that icy exterior, the needs are right there, waiting incredibly patiently for a reason to trust again, for a space that's finally safe enough to let those walls down. And this brings us to the ultimate hidden human conflict, the delicate balance between safety and protection versus connection and vulnerability. This right here is the struggle between merely surviving emotionally and truly living emotionally. Human beings are creatures constantly trying to avoid suffering, and sometimes that fear of pain just completely overpowers the deep desire for connection. Protection replaces participation. But beneath it all, underneath all the armor, people still want to feel, even when feeling hurts. Which leaves us with one final, kind of haunting mystery. How many emotions are you silently carrying right now that you no longer allow yourself to feel? How many of us are sitting quietly behind these defensive walls, just waiting for a safe reason to open the door again?